breaking, car market is officially collapsing. With car manufacturers like Jaguar can't sell a vehicle, internal combustion has been canceled, as well as their electrification markets on hold. Toyota can't shake the reputation of some of the quality control challenges, and sales are down. Mercedes and almost every German manufacturer sales are down in Europe. And Stellantis can't sell Jeep with days supply rising at an incredible rate. And an internal squabble means that European-led Stellantis is leading Dodge, Ram, Jeep into oblivion. And as well, Nissan continues the downward spiral of poor sales. And in August, 5.5% gone, as well as 99% profits up in smoke in the first half of 2024, means the absolute entire automotive industry is feeling the pain and is in a downward spiral of destruction. We've heard, first of all, Volkswagen is struggling with sales so much, in fact, so they reinvested too much money into their electrification, and now unfortunately they're not able to sell any of their vehicles. Sales are drastically down, and as well, they're trying to stop the bleeding by knocking off $11 billion to try to recoup. So they're asking workers to take a step back, maybe take pay cuts, and there's even talk about a lot of their plants shutting down. Volkswagen and the VAG group, including a lot of the Audi products and Porsche products, are in dire straits with sales slumped, and their focus on electrification have put a lot of these German manufacturers or legacy manufacturers down in a hard way. And BMW's been struggling with sales too. A lot of their M cars, even X5s, the more premium luxury SUVs and cars, are not selling well. A lot of their electrified vehicles, here we have an iX, not selling particularly well. And have you heard about the recall on a lot of their new vehicles? They're seeing a drastic recall that impacts potentially up to 1.5 million vehicles because of some braking issues. Their continental braking problems are leading allegedly to some big challenges and big dollars to spend in the recall department. So BMW is struggling as well. And sales of any of their electric vehicles, for example, the XM is supposed to be a plug-in hybrid. It's supposed to be the flagship, and nobody's buying them. Sales are in the toilet. As well, sales are doing poorly for a lot of their conventional vehicles that traditionally have done very well. 3 Series, 4 Series vehicles are not selling particularly well in the BMW space, but instead the only vehicles really holding their act together right now for BMW, the smaller vehicles in the X series vehicles, the smaller SUVs, X1s, X2s, X3s, and X4s, but otherwise most of their models are losing money at an alarming rate. And General Motors has had a mixed review. Of course, they say in the Q3 for General Motors, which is Chevy and GMC, they've actually been up. They're now leading sales in North America, second only to Tesla for electric vehicles, and they say they're producing more vehicles for different types of people in the electric market space. So a lot of these vehicles are doing very, very well. As well, on top of it, they've seen a 3% increase in the overall sales on the retail side of their market. But unfortunately, that was all flattened by the fact that they dropped year over year 2% sales decline because a lot of their fleet sales are down drastically. So a lot of their trucks, SUVs, a lot of their white vehicles like that are going out to businesses were dropping in fleets. And a lot of that's an indication to the economy, what's going on overall, that there's less business, there's more businesses shutting down, and less of a demand for fleet vehicles. It's also partially that time of the year. So far, GM's holding their own. They've developed more electric vehicles, but on the flip side is a lot of those vehicles are coming as well into the hybrid sector because they realize the mining and the materials needed to produce these batteries for battery electric vehicles are very limited. And a lot of these manufacturers, not just GM and Chevy, are struggling with acquiring a lot of these types of products for these big size batteries. And Ford has been selling these F-Series trucks. Sales have been slightly up. They're seeing in this quarter that they've seen overall sales go up about 4% versus the same quarter last year going up about 13%. So sales are soft this year, and there's a little bit of a concern with affordability crisis and people not being able to spend the money they just don't have. And the whole messaging that people's taking out car loans for 84 months is finally sinking in. A lot of people are realizing that they shouldn't be getting that deep in hock, and the prices of a lot of these new full-size trucks are just going up, and Ford, with almost all of their models, including the ever popular SUVs, continue to be jacked up every year, and 2025 looks to be additional increases. But unfortunately, Ford has struggled with some quality challenges, and that's where the real problem lies. With the little Bronco Sports like this, as well as some of their other smaller SUVs that carry the 1.5 liter, they've had a whole list of issues with NHTSA and the recalls with the fuel injector problems, as well as some of their full-size full-size pickup trucks and the new 2.7 and 3-liter turbocharged engines, of course, and having some major issues with a lot of these vehicles because of blown up engines. They've had intake valves split apart, and there's massive recalls for a lot of those vehicles, as well as the full-size Broncos that carry the same 2.7 and 3-liter engines. So recalls have been a big challenge for Ford. They've had a lot of issues, and that's where Ford struggles, is some of the quality control challenges. Ford's also realized that they're going to reinvest and look more in the Super Duty trucks, because that seems to be a market that isn't that well serviced. And of course, the sales of the F-150s or the F-150s or the smaller pickup trucks seem to be a little softer, so they're refocusing in here and a little bit less on the electric vehicles. With that being said, the smaller pickup trucks like the Maverick with the hybrid drivetrains are a very popular seller. People can gravitate to those, and they're selling very popularly. They're up about 33% in overall sales, and the Mavericks have really been keeping Ford afloat. And as well, Ford's Jim Farley's been talking about it's time to bring fun back into Ford, time to bring fun cars. They've pretty much gotten rid of almost every single car other than the Mustang, and outside of that, there's no cars left to get your hands on. So they want to refocus on the fun factor that Ford used to present that is pretty much long gone. And a real grim story comes with the shape of a Nissan. That's right, Nissan sales have been absolutely in the toilet. They're heading for a proverbial cliff in sales, and we don't even know if there's an end in sight. Unfortunately, in the last quarter, we saw Nissan sales dive, lost profits as much as 99% of all of the sales of these vehicles. 5.5% sales decline, of course, in the month of August, and about 2.2% decline in sales year over year last month means that there's no end in sight. Nissan is struggling to sell a lot of their products. Stock prices are in the tank, and none of their models actually have anything that buyers are looking for. People are looking for more interesting technology, and with the fact that a lot of the Nissan products just lack a lot of the innovation, a lot of the old style technology, they don't have a lot in the way of electrification. And even sales in China are down 24% this year, largely because there's a plant closing down. Nonetheless, sales are down. And while we're seeing a 2.2% down in sales in August here, year over year, Hyundai has seen an increase in 5% plus. They're actually on the other side of the coin and stealing a lot of the market share. A lot of the dealers are getting panicky. Sales are down, 70% profit loss for this sales industry here who's selling Nissan products. Just means Nissan is in a world of hurt. And then lo and behold, we have Mitsubishi like this, and this is one of the good luck stories. Mitsubishi has actually had an amazing third quarter for sales, and it's their Mirage that's actually been a vehicle with 114% increase in sales in this last run here. It generally means that Mitsubishi has actually been outselling a lot of its competition. But remember, the Mitsubishi Mirage is one of the few vehicles that's still in that sub $20,000 category. And so that's a big indication. That's a clear telling story what consumers are looking for, true affordable transportation. And while every other manufacturer continues to add complicated drivetrains, increase prices, Mitsubishi just offers some very affordable drivetrains and very affordable vehicles. The unfortunate part is the Mirage is planning to go away in 2025, and so the very thing that most consumers love about Mitsubishi and the affordability may in fact be going away. So far, they're holding their own and they're stealing a lot of market share from a lot of their competition, but Mitsubishi in general, while not necessarily the highest quality brand, made in Japan is one of those manufacturers a lot of people still have faith in. And then the Korean brands Hyundai and Kia. Kia, for example, they've been down, although this last quarter they sold about 197,000 units in the US market. They are in fact down 6% year over year. So the only bright spot in the sales of a lot of these Kia products happens to be on the electrified and hybrid marketplace, because the standard variety Kias and Hyundais have seen major sales declines, and 6% is a pretty significant downturn in the overall sales portfolio. It just means that Kia vehicles like this with quality control challenges, particularly on a lot of their internal combustion engines. And remember, Kia and Hyundai and a lot of their 2.4 and some of their Theta 2 engines, and they're still recovering from a lot of the reputation and quality as well as the repair challenges. A lot of people are not inspired by a lot of these brands with, of course, the quality challenges, and rebuilding some of these engines allegedly have shown to be very delayed, very problematic, and getting your car engine replaced by the factory, even within warranty, proves to be a very lengthy and painful experience, and that reputation seems to be getting around, allegedly. And as we've said, days supply usually has been quite low, and Honda and Acura have actually had a really good run. And one of the good luck stories happens to be Honda as well as Acura, the luxury brand. As we're looking right there, the Hondas have actually done very well. They're up about 11.5% for the year in sales, year over year, and as well about 10.3 in the quarter. And even Acura, their luxury brand, is up about 5.7% in the Q3. So they're doing particularly well. And we know days supply has been actually relatively low on a lot of the Acura and Honda products throughout a lot of these last couple of years, as opposed to Ford products. Acura has done very well. They've sold a lot of vehicles, and they've kept their customer base very happy with keeping just enough vehicles on the lot to sell. But there's been a very low day supply. So in other words, they sell almost everything they make. People are happy, buyers are happy, and sales are up. They're one of the few manufacturers with a good luck story this last year. And then Tesla, one of the pioneers of the electric vehicles, unfortunately have been giving up market share. Sure, they've revamped this model, of course, the Model 3. More and more people are looking at the model again because it's a slightly refreshed version. But unfortunately, what people can't come to terms with are the cost of a lot of these Teslas. And so they're losing market share. They're still talking about this robo-taxi, which isn't really coming to fruition. And there's all this rhetoric about buying or producing a low-cost, affordable electric vehicle. But that's yet to come to fruition. And right now, products like the Tesla vehicles are losing market share to GM, who's actually selling a lot more electric vehicles these days. And of course, with Ford and their Lightning, the Mustang Mach-E, there's a lot of legacy vehicle brands that are trying to vouch to gain market share from Tesla. And Tesla is starting to struggle holding out the fort for sales of a lot of their electric vehicles. And Mercedes-Benz sales are in the tank as well. Any of these German manufacturers are struggling with sales this year. A lot of the prices are up. Germany, a lot of the regulations and the commitment to the electric vehicle space means that they've overcommitted and often under-delivered. Prices are high. People can't afford a lot of these premium luxury brands too. So a lot of these come at a higher dollar point or price point, and a lot of customers aren't buying Mercedes-Benz right now because they simply don't have the money. They should take a page out of Mitsubishi's book and create something that's a little bit more affordable for the masses right now, especially at a time when people are looking for some of their hard-earned dollars that they seem to be hard to come by. With obviously increased inflation, cost of living, high taxes, it means people don't necessarily want the high-end Mercedes-Benz anymore, and hence it's starting to show in the overall profits. But on top of that, they even gave up some of their market share to the taxis. You know, Mercedes-Benz in Europe used to be one of the leading taxi manufacturers, but they don't even want to get involved in the commitment of converting their vehicles. So they're giving a lot of that market share up to Volkswagen. And so even though they don't seem to be that too worried about that particular market share loss, it's impacting their bottom line. And unfortunately, sales for Toyota and Lexus have slumped slightly, dealing with some of the quality control challenges, some of their bad engines and the 3.4s and the LX600s. There is no doubt that Lexus and Toyota have struggled this year. There's a little bit of a calamity there with some test results and crash testing. And so the reputation hasn't exactly been that stellar. So even though Lexus is one of the most reliable manufacturers on the planet, they too aren't necessarily perfect. But with that said, they're talking about some of their future manufacturing to be pulled from the North American market and sent off to Japan instead. Maybe they're reading the writing on the wall that a lot of these manufacturing challenges, for example with UAW and the strikes, that it creates all kinds of extra challenges and unknowns and unpredictability. So therefore they look like they're planning on moving a lot of their Lexus vehicle manufacturing overseas back to home base. And reports have it that Toyota sales are down overall. While Toyota creates some of the most reliable vehicles like this, and especially some of their hybrid vehicles are knocking out of the park, Toyota has scaled back. They initially projected 1.5 million units sold to be pure electric vehicle. Now they're scaling back from a plant that they said was going to be manufactured in Kentucky. That type of facility to make electric vehicles is looking at retracting slightly. Unfortunately, overall 10% sales decline in this third quarter of 2024 means that Toyota has seen a little bit of a slump. And while they do like to see a lot of their vehicles sell well, and most of them are very popular, especially the hybrid vehicles like these, unfortunately, their Tacoma is down about 8.7% in Q3 from last year, and largely because of some of the quality issues. Engine issues, transmission, and that new transmission auto there that we've heard about with the torque converter problem. Go with the manual if you're going to do it. But basically, Toyota has had a few struggles. They've had some compliance issues with crash testing that they're dealing with, and reputational challenges allegedly to keep them on their toes. So Toyota has had a little bit of a struggle. They are selling lots of vehicles and they're selling a ton of Camrys, and Toyota is still a trusted brand for reliability, but their sales are down too. And the financial troubles continue for Stellantis and the brands that you're seeing right here. Jeeps, Rams, and everything in between, from Dodge, Chrysler products. None of these vehicles are selling all that well, and they lead the charge for the biggest losers. In other words, they have days supply that absolutely doubles, triples, quadruples vehicles of every other manufacturer. Carlos Tavares alleges, we're probably good for shareholders, of course, with dividends in 2024 to pay out for shareholders or stock prices, but 2025 isn't necessarily guaranteed because sales are extremely poor. These vehicles are seeing big price discounts here recently in Canada. I know $5,000 off of the Compass here immediately right off the top, and every single brand seems to be heavily discounted. So it's not a big secret that Stellantis and Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, particularly the American brands, not as much in Europe because the Alphas and the Fiats aren't doing particularly poorly. It really is the North American brands like the Dodges and the Jeeps and the Rams that are suffering extremely poorly. The customers feel disconnected from the corporate, and the prices are extremely high. People are disappointed and often making choices to go somewhere else. And so sadly, with all these poor sales and these constant ongoing of challenges with UAW strikes, of poor sales, we've got the strike leader, of course, Fain, taking a run constantly at Carlos because of the way he's managing the program. Of course, some of the plants, Belvedere plant being not necessarily put online like they were supposed to. Naturally, raises aren't there. The incremental increases in the amount of staff that they were supposed to increase is not happening. Sales poor, and the organization as a whole is suffering. Sales are bad and things are looking quite bleak for the brand as a whole. They've even talked about parting out some of the brands. Maserati, Jeep, Ram, even Chrysler. Junior was looking at potentially buying the brand back because we didn't want to see, a lot of the North American buyers don't want to see where these brands are going. Rams are too expensive. Dodge, the Challenger, the Chargers are no longer true to their roots with muscle car, and now they're turning into big, fat, bloated, electrified units, and people are disappointed with the brand as a whole. Sales are grossly down 20%, 30%. We can throw all kinds of numbers. They've likely hit those targets on absolute brutal sales losses. This is what's happening in Stellantis, and it's no different here in 2024. We see this downward spiral and the brand is suffering big time. So let's take a look. I've got a list here compiled roughly of some losses, allegedly, some numbers that I pulled together. We're looking at Toyota, they're down. Chevy, Honda is actually up 10%. Hyundai is up 5%. Kia down 6%. We already talked about. Subaru is actually up 5%. And the likes of Jeep down 6%. Mazda way up 25%. Mazda and reliability have been doing very well recently, and we're seeing brands like BMW, I already said, they're down 7%. Buick up 8%. Audi down 21%. As I said, the VAG group is suffering big time. And of course, we do see the likes of Infiniti down 12%, Mini down 33%, Alpha down 29%, and the list goes on and on. Things are struggling and it's real. And so naturally, a lot of these declines in sales is a result of people looking for value. They're not getting the value in these high dollar vehicles or vehicles that are relatively unreliable. That's why Lexus, Honda, Toyota are doing particularly well, Mazda as well. There's definitely a connection between reliability, cost, and value for the money. That's why a lot of people are just electing to go fix what they've got, like this little Ram here, keep it running until vehicle prices become more palatable. A lot of people are just electing to walk away from that expensive new vehicle. With all of that said, be sure to check out Right There and Right There. You're gonna love those videos. They're gonna tell you all about what's going on in the market today. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.